Hi, I'm Tasha with Pathways to Peace Counseling, and we are going to continue talking about should I medicate my child with ADHD? And this topic is on parenting. So, there's a lot that goes into parenting a child with ADHD, and it is not for the faint of heart. I know from experience it is quite difficult. So, I wanted to give you some of my tips and tricks that have been very successful in my home and I have heard that these have been very successful with a lot of my clients as well. So, to begin with, let's talk about some different parenting styles. One is the permissive parenting style. And what this means is that these parents just are kind of willy nilly. Kids can get away with anything. There's really not very much structure, very low expectation. Kids really don't have a lot of chores that they have to do. They don't get in a lot of trouble if they get in trouble at school, if they don't make good grades. These parents just kind of fly by the seat of their pants and whatever happens, happens. They're very much disengaged from what is happening in the daily life of their kids. And then you have on the other side of things where you have very strict parents, and these authoritarian parents are they are very regimented. They have high expectations, very strict. And whenever their kids fail to meet their expectations, they're very punitive. So lots of consequences, lots of demands of what they expect their child to be. But whenever their child gets in trouble, the consequences are dished out in a kind of a harsh way. There's not a lot of love and empathy and kindness and gentleness that goes into the parenting of this style. So it's all about, are you making the grade? Are you up to snuff? Are you doing the things that I want you to do, or are you not? And so whenever kids are kind of meeting the standard, usually everything's going along pretty well. But whenever kids fall short of the standard, it's not a very happy environment for anybody. And this is especially difficult for ADHD kids because they have a lot of behavior problems, especially so your inattentive type, maybe not so much, but your hyperactive kids, they want to please you. They want to do good, but they can't get their stuff together. Like they're all over the place. And so it's not necessarily that it's to spite you as a parent that they're acting out. It's they're chemically off and they can't get it together. So what the best parenting style is smack dab in the middle. So the authoritative parenting style, these parents focus on connection. They focus on developing a bond with their child so that they can kind of mold them into the person they want them to be. And they do it with grace and love, but they also do manage high expectations for their children. They will not permit their child to act hatefully and get away with just bad behavior. They give them consequences, but they do it in a loving, gentle, caring way. And the difference is so, like with your authoritarian parents, they might get their kids to obey them, but it's out of fear of punishment and it's not out of respect. Whereas with the authoritative parents that are loving and gentle and kind, yet firm, the kids want to please them and they do what they should do out of respect and honor. So if you find that your child is not acting right and they're being disrespectful or they just don't have very much structure, you might kind of consider what is my parenting style, and am I in one extreme or the other, or am I somewhere along the middle? And kind of my motto in whenever it comes to parenting is, stay on the road and out of the ditches. If you go too far to one extreme or the other, you're going to have problems. And so that comes to all sorts of different things, not just in your parenting style, but that means like if you're a helicopter mom and you're doing everything for your kid and you're all up in their business, that's going to cause problems. If you're disengaged and you're not doing anything for your kids, that's going to cause problems too. So you want to find the middle ground in most things whenever it comes to parenting, and your kids are going to do a lot better. They're going to have better outcomes. So parenting tricks and tips. So, one thing that I have found to be quite helpful is logical consequences. Whenever your kid does something wrong, instead of being like, oh, now you did it, you got in trouble, so now you're grounded, or this is your consequence for it. You kind of make the consequence fit the crime kind of thing. Like if they go in and they trash their room, you come at them with empathy and love and say, Oh, this is so sad. Your room is such a mess. It's going to take a while to clean it, but I know you can do it. And you try to use supportive language, but you make their messy room their problem, not your problem. And whenever they come out later and they say, I want to watch TV, or I want to go play with a friend, or I want to do whatever, you say, oh, yeah, you can do that as soon as your room is clean. And so you just keep throwing it back on them because that's their problem that they need to take care of before they get any benefits, right? So but kids learn with this parenting style to take ownership and responsibility. And so if you're having a child that has a lot of power struggles, this is especially good for kids with power struggles because you're giving them control within a range that works for you. Like one example would be, let's say your child's bedtime is 8 o'clock. At 7:55, you can come to them and say, okay, it's time for bed. Do you want to go to bed now or do you want to stay up 5 minutes? Your child is going to have a sense of control over that and most likely will say, I want to stay up 5 minutes, and you're okay with that. So you just kind of dish out lots of choices, um, lots of freedom to them within parameters that you're comfortable with. Whenever they mess up, you have the role of being a consultant and say, okay, let's kind of brainstorm some ways to solve this problem. And it's looking at the misbehavior more as it's a problem to be solved more than you're a bad kid and you did wrong, right? So it's a learning opportunity. So that learning opportunity mindset is very healing for children and it gives them a challenge. There's not shame involved in it. It's, oh, there's a mistake, there's something we need to fix. Let's come up with an idea to fix it instead of putting them down because they've done something wrong. So that is very effective with children in general, but especially children that really struggle with their behavior issues and with defiance because it really takes a lot of the power struggles out of your parenting. Another thing I like to do is redirection. It's this, not that kind of mindset. So if your child comes in and you're working on improving their diet and they run straight for the junk food, you say, hold on, buddy. Today your snack is going to be an apple. Or if you want to offer the different choices and do your love and logic thing, you can say, would you like an apple or banana? And so you give them a couple choices of what you're okay with them having for their snack, and you're aiming them away from the junk food. And then so it's not really anything that requires you to use your parenting toolbox of you're grounded, I'm taking away your electronics, you're not allowed to play with your friends, whatever the issue is of how you would normally handle that behavior issue. Another one is redos. So if your child comes in and is being mouthy and hateful, they come in blah 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 blah, saying all this mean stuff to you. Instead of spanking them on the butt and sending them to their room, you could say, I really don't appreciate the way that you talk to me. Let's redo the situation. I want you to talk to me in a calm tone. I want you to make eye contact with me, and I want you to use respectful language. And you could even role play it and kind of say, this is the kind of thing that I would like to hear you say. Why don't you try again? And if you can be respectful, you might like the response that you get from me a lot better. And this is really helpful because it is allowing each of these situations to be a learning opportunity. So they get to learn, what is it that my mom expects from me? What is it that dad wants to hear from me in this situation? And as they learn the right language to use, as they learn the right tone to use, as they learn the impact of their facial expressions, you're going to see a change in their long-term behavior because you're kind of molding it each time it happens of, no, you're not going to be acting this way. This is how I want you to act instead. And so those redos kind of take away here's the heart of the issue. Children who have ADHD, especially impulsive ones, are in trouble all the time. And if every time they do something wrong, you're punitive or you're taking something away or you're yelling at them or there's a consequence for every little thing, they're going to feel like they're under your thumb all the time. They're going to feel like they're constantly under attack. And we want children to have success. We want them to feel proud of themselves. And the way that's going to happen is by building them up and encouraging them one step at a time with these little things that they can do. So you're taking away, like, if you do redirection and redos for all of the minor infractions, then they're going to get in trouble a fraction of the time that they would have if they got a consequence for every little thing, right? So we're just going to use these little parenting tricks to kind of hone that behavior a little bit to get it under control whenever it's not a big deal. That way, whenever they really pull out the doozy, then you can go to your parenting toolbox of this time you're going to get the big consequence, or you've got to go sit in your room for an hour now because this one was a big one. But you don't want to use that for every single violation. And you don't want to miss all those learning opportunities too, because if they learn all those things, then you're looking at a whole lot less behavior disruptions in the future because they've been learning along the way. And kids learn a lot more from these things than they do sitting in the room for an hour, because a lot of times if they might be listening to music in their head, they might be daydreaming about a friendship at school, whatever. They might not even be thinking about what it was that got them in trouble. So sometimes these timeouts, sometimes they're effective, sometimes they're not. So it gives you a lot more freedom as a parent as far as kind of handling these difficulties. So another one is structure. Children with ADHD often struggle against structure. They don't want it, but they thrive with it. And so classic ADHD kids are usually very disorganized, and they're kind of fly by the seat of their pants kind of people. They just want to get up and go, and they would forget their head if it wasn't attached, right? And, they're always showing up at school without their backpack or without their lunch and all these things. But if you have structure to where every day is the same, so you have a consistent wake up time, you have a consistent morning routine of, first you do this, then you do this. Like, first, I want you to get out of bed and make your bed. I want you to go and take a shower and brush your teeth, brush your hair, get dressed, eat breakfast. If everything is in a certain order and it's regimented, where it's every day it's the same, then you're not going to have to hound them as much. But if every day is different, if they get up and they do things in a different order, they're never going to have that automatic body memory thing that will happen. So you want them to, like, for instance, the first time you ride a bike, you have to think about it a lot. But after you've been riding for a while, you get on it and you don't even think about it. That's how we want their routines to be, so that they're not even having to remember it anymore. It's just automatic responses. And this can be helpful. Like, sometimes you're just going to have to take a lot of extra love with your ADHD kid than you do maybe children that you have that don't have ADHD. Like, whenever they come home from school and you open up their backpack and it's just full of chaos and trash and all sorts of stuff, to teach them, to sit with them and say, okay, we've got to throw away these papers. These are your worksheets that you need to do tonight. And then you're helping them develop those organizational skills that are going to carry them long term. And they're just going to need a little bit of extra love with this. And whenever it comes to doing things like homework or really with anything, what we want to do is start with something easy and just build on it a little bit. So if you get home in the afternoon, your kid's been struggling sitting still for the whole day, they're going to have tons of energy that they want to let out, right? So you might say, okay, let's start on homework, and you might start out one worksheet. Do one worksheet, then you can go play for a little bit, then we're going to come back and do another one, then you can play for a little bit. But once they start getting success with one thing, you just build on it until they're able to accomplish more and more and more. And you might need to structure your day in a way that's going to help them succeed. Like, whenever they get home from school, they might need to run off a lot of energy before they're ready to sit down and be still. And especially if you're going to run out of daylight, they let them go out and play while the sun's up. And then maybe after dinner, you might have time to sit back down and focus again. But, you just kind of have to work with your kid and find out what is going to be the most successful thing for them. So there's lots of things that you can do parenting wise. These are just a few tips. I mean, I could probably talk for hours about parenting ideas for how to help your children who have ADHD. But these are kind of the top ones that I have found to be very successful and make a huge difference in the harmony in your home, but also preparing your child to really thrive. I hope that this segment has been helpful, but don't miss all the other videos along in this series, because we're talking about diet, exercise, screen time, how counseling can help, and, whenever you finally have to make that decision, do I need to call the doctor and have my child put on medication? So we're going to talk about all those things, but also I have so many things available at pathwaystopeacecounseling.com. I've got books and games, lots of free downloadable resources. So be sure to check all those out as well. Thank you for joining me.